Welcome to episode 2 of Run It Straight. I am joined here today by Paulie, one of our field coaches. Thank you for coming, Paulie.
Thanks.
And let's get stuck straight in. All right, first question we're going to cover today is from Mohammed. I play in the halves and I'm pretty quick on my feet and a good ball runner, but how do I learn to ball play better? Paulie, skill and sequence. If you were to sum that up in 15 seconds, this to this to this, what would that look like? Very roughly.
As a ball player?
Yeah.
I'd say grip.
Yep.
I would say vision.
Yep.
Playing what's in front of you. I would also say upskilling your speed and agility.
Yep.
Because you need your speed and agility. You can, whether you're going to attack before the line, whether you're going to attack at the line if you're robust, or after the line, which is a special ball player.
Yep.
Because a lot of people will play backdoor.
Yep.
A lot of the time, or as people say, they play in a dinner suit where they will not take on the contact. Personally, as a coach, I like to have a person who can play a 6, 7 or 9.
Yep.
And adapt and
a lot of those same skills that you can use in that. You can, for instance, what did he say? He's a half. You can use it half. You can use it 5'8". You can use it hooker. You can use it these days a fullback. Yes.
100%. Where what can happen is that you can rotate, and some coaches they will rotate the number 9 to go into number 6 position and move the 6 to number 9.
Yep.
And all you do is you set foundation and then upskill them in that environment themselves.
So, I know that in our last episode, the first episode of this, when Chris and I were talking about some of the things the kids could work on, one thing that we probably did get was a little bit too general. If you were to go just one or two little specific things for someone who's looking to get better at ball playing, what would that be? Aside from obviously trying to get a good coach to sit there and to coach you, if there was one or two little things, you could say, look, go and practice this, or this is a particular type of a skill or a quality that you need to be able to ball play.
Okay. We can all set the foundation.
Yep.
Where you have your core skills. So naturally you go and try and upskill your core skills.
Yep.
The next thing is that I call it indicators.
Yep.
Where your vision, where you are reading the game.
Yep.
So if you are a quality player who was a ball player is 2 steps ahead of everyone else. So
Yep.
you have a look at someone like Cooper Cronk or Thurston, they will play their structure and their systems, but then they will play off the cuff.
Yeah, what they see.
Because of their vision. So
Yep.
I call it indicators. So like traffic signals.
Okay, so just to be even more annoying,
No, that's okay.
how does one go about developing that vision? I know there's always going to be a natural component to it, and some players have it naturally and others have to do a lot more work on it. But if you are trying to work on that, is it just through putting yourself in those situations, whether it's in a game or obviously in training, and just repeating that over and over?
It's a fine line because you can have a person that has a sensational work ethic. That's one. You continue to work on your work ethic with your field sessions and your extras,
Yep.
your extras that you can have. And then there's some born athletes. So it's a fine line. So the perfect hybrid is a born athlete who can upskill themselves,
Yep.
or a person that will work very, very hard and
Yep.
grind very, very hard,
Yep.
putting in the extras. So you just have your scope and sequence, what you want as essential parts of a ball player.
Yep.
And then you have a look at YouTube and choose a style of player that you see that will complement you.
All right, let's move on to our next question. He's from George. I play second row, and sometimes when I'm playing, the game just seems to unfold around me and I don't do much. How do I get more involved in the game? I'll jump in on that one first. Probably there was a story that I read a number of years back it was Shane Webke. If you know him, front rower at the Broncos, I think he's probably the best front rower that I've seen playing. And when he came through in the early days at Brisbane, he was referring to when he came through at the early days at Brisbane, and obviously he was big, strong, sort of raw player, and he found himself getting a little bit lost and not getting as involved as he wanted to be in games. And Bennett said to him something, I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of, let's make it simple. All I want you to do every set of 6 is make 1 tackle defensively, and then when we've got the ball, you need to take 1 hit up. And so going into a game for him, that just really simplified. There were so many things that he was thinking about as far as offensively playing on this side of the ruck or that side of the ruck, what line he had to run, the guys that he had to tee up to run with him. You know, was he going out? Was he jamming back in behind? All of that. And Bennett made it really simple. He knew he was big and strong. Just get your hit up in, get your tackle in, and then I'm happy. And then everything else sort of flowed off from that. So I'd probably say set yourself some goals within a game, and maybe that means, okay, every set of 6 I want to take a hit up. I also want to push up in support with my front rower at least once or twice in a set. And then in defence, aside from obviously making the tackles that are on your side, maybe you do want to drop back and cover a little bit, so if something does happen on the other side of the field, you're in a position to contribute running across in cover defence. I don't know, but you need to set yourself some goals and then work off of that. What else would you say?
I was fortunate enough to come across John Crampton, who was a sports psychologist, and he lectured and spoke about de bono. And I know it sounds heavy, but the thing is, he spoke about 3 hats. One hat was green, where you be creative and you be involved and you be passionate. The second one was a red hat, where basically when the game was going very, very fast and you were looking in all directions, which is what George was saying, and you panic and then you think a point. And the worst one of all of them, in my opinion as a coach, is the white hat, where the person is neutral. They don't participate. They are basically
a passenger.
They're a player watcher.
Yep.
And my attitude is involvement and commitment.
Yep.
So we used to say, my father used to say in elite football, one more round. True coaches rate players, for example, that will take a ball up the first play and then get their hands on it the third play, even if they just tip off to a block runner.
Just to get involved.
So it must participate.
Yep. No, brilliant. All right, we'll move on to the next question from Tim. I really want to try to make reps, but I don't know where to start. Okay, so this one is probably going to be a bit of a long answer from me. The number one thing that I would say is regardless of whether you want to make reps or you just want to get better as a footballer, is you need to put in the work. Now, how much work are we talking about here? We're looking at, my suggestion is a minimum of 20 to 25 hours. Now, that might sound like a lot, and you're like, oh, that's a lot of hours, and what does it look like? We're talking strength work, resistance training type stuff. We're talking speed and acceleration, change of direction, skill work, flexibility and mobility work, conditioning, and then you might even throw your nutrition in there. So when you look at that many different facets to what you need to be developing, the time actually gets sucked up pretty quickly. But if you're still thinking, or maybe there's a parent who's watching it thinking, I don't want my son putting that much time in, or that's overdoing it, because like we've mentioned before, you see like at Mats and at Ball level for the 16s or the 18s, they may be putting in 6 hours a week, 7 hours a week with some of those rep sides. And so the parents might think, well, if he's putting 7 hours a week in, then that's sufficient. An example that I'd give, I mentioned it to Nikki behind the camera over there. Don't worry, you'll see, we'll get it on one of these episodes soon enough. Was Melanie Wright, who was an Olympic swimmer. She represented in Beijing and London. She won 5 medals, I think 2 were gold. And I was reading an article not long ago by her, and she was talking about how she took up the sport late, I think about the age of 14, but by the last couple of years of high school, she was in the pool from 5 a.m. until 7 a.m. every single day during school, then off to school. After school, from 4 until 6 p.m, she was back in the pool working again and then doing more work on a Saturday. And that's the level. So you're looking right there easily at 20, 25 hours a week. Also, I've been working recently with school-age national diver who is putting in the same. He's actually putting in around about 30 hours a week in training, between dry land training and between stuff in the pool. So that amount of hours is fine to be putting in. Okay, you're going to have to sacrifice some stuff. That is what it is. So spend less time on Snapchat and Instagram, or playing Fortnite, or playing your Xbox or your PlayStation or Netflix or Stan or whatever the hell you're doing with your time. The time's there. If you want to be the best footballer that you can be, if you want to make it into reps, or if you just want to maybe score a try, you've been playing 3 years and you've never crossed the line, whatever it is, however you want to improve your game, you have to put the work in. Now, if we break this down, what does that 20 to 25 hours look like? Resistance training wise, it might be 4, 6, 8 hours that you're spending doing your strength work in the gym. Obviously, depending where the question was about playing reps. So I'm assuming that you're at your 13, your 14, 15, 16, something like this. You should be spending 6, 7, 8 hours in the gym. we mentioned last week, you need to have someone who knows what they're doing taking you through that, but that's sort of a minimum for what you need to be doing. Then you need to be looking at conditioning. Now, again, depending on where you are in your training block over the course of a 12-month period, that could be 1 to 3 hours a week that you need to be spending on conditioning. If you're in season, it's going to be a fair bit more intense and the volume's going to be a lot less. If it's in the off season, you might be doing a lot more of it. And if you're trying to pull off a little bit of body fat or mud, as Paulie likes to call it, you might need to be doing a little bit longer. But so conditioning, you're looking, 1 or 2 to 3 hours a week at least. Next, we look at speed and agility, change of direction. Minimum 1 to 2 hours, again, depending on where you are in your cycle over the year, where you are as far as development-wise. Are you 13 and you're lightning quick? Maybe working on the speed isn't a bit, maybe you're just light as a feather. Maybe you need to spend a little bit more time putting on some size. Maybe you're like a slug and speed and agility and change of direction is where you need to be spending your time, but I'd be looking at least an hour or two. Skill work, which is probably the most important thing. 5 to 6 hours a week minimum, would you agree? Yeah. Again, if you're younger, that could be a fair bit more because you might not be doing as much of the strength work in the gym because your body's not fully developed. If you're older, that's just going to go up. And look, skill work is one of those areas where, sure, you can overtrain, but it's a lot harder to overtrain in that area. You really can push the envelope. And now when we're talking about skill work, what does that mean? Look, it's obviously going to be somewhat position dependent, but, some things that you mentioned before, grips, passing, line running, kicking, tackle technique. Obviously, you're going to need some people to work on with these things. Running in groups of 3 people, in groups of 5 people. There is stuff that you can do on your own. It could be watching, like again, Paulie mentioned earlier, it could be watching film, or we call it film, but watching video. You could be on YouTube, watching old games, go to the NRL website, whatever it is. Look at the players that you like, look how they play the game that are in a similar position to you. And then, okay, he seems to run this out inward line, or he's got a really strong palm, or he changes the ball from this hand to that whenever he's approaching the defence. Look at the things that they're doing, break that down, okay, and then just go out and hammer on that drill and do it over and over and over again so that when you're in a game situation, it's going to be very, it's just that specific skill is a learned pattern that you don't have to think about. Flexibility and mobility, last area. We try to get all of our guys to do about 45 minutes to an hour a day working on this. This could be static stretching, it could be foam rolling, trigger point release, it could be some plyometric type stuff, it could be going and actually getting soft tissue work done from a massage therapist, or even some self massage release. So flexibility, mobility, this, I can't emphasize this enough. If you're going to be doing 20, 25, 30 hours a week worth of training, you will be running the risk of getting injuries if you don't keep your body nice and supple and take care of it. True? Good call. So look, you add all that up, you're looking at least 20, 25 hours a week. As I mentioned, it does depend on your age, the level of development, the areas that you need to do work, whether there's more time spent in the gym, more time doing your conditioning, more time on skill, or more time on speed and direction. But in essence, that's what you need to be doing if you want to see how good you can be as a rugby league player and give yourself a crack at making reps. That's sort of my spiel on that one. Paulie, have you got anything else that you would like to add?
There's a few areas.
Good.
I think the first one is have a plan. NRL clubs, the NYC when it was running and so on, Fleg, rep sides, they have their periodisation in their blocks of 4 weeks.
Yep.
So what will basically happen is that you have to do a mini version of that. That's step 1. Step 2 is there's a saying that I use, which is how hungry are you? And I get a lot of players when I first raise that, they'll look and they'll say, well, I had chicken for lunch. And I said, no, I don't mean that. So their interpretation is slightly different, which is how passionate are you? And the third one will be very resilient, because you will get your hiccups, you will get your humps.
Absolutely.
But I think rep-wise, as a coach, get your club level, get it right, see how you fit in and get developed by the coach. And then in time, if they will look at your work ethic, they will look at your athleticism, they will look at your skill level, because it's a big matrix. And often people play Harold Matthews and SG Ball and so on, and they go through the system, but there are other people that haven't been through the system. But at 17 years of age, someone sees something special in them.
You mentioned someone, was it yesterday we were talking about? Who was it?
Paul Gallen was an
Yeah.
example where he hadn't played a lot of the
junior rep stuff.
Matt King was a perfect example at Cronulla, where before he went to Storm and Souths and so on, you hear the story of him sleeping, sharing, having a mattress in but it sounds basic,
Yep.
but having to do it hard,
Yep.
and then suddenly someone saw a part of him and his work commitment. He was very resilient, and off he went.
Yep.
Played international, played state of origin, and so on.
I think what you just said there is someone saw something.
Yeah.
So again, aside from all the prep and all the training and everything else like that, the attitude really is important, because coaches, they're looking for certain things within. And yeah, they're definitely looking for size or strength or speed, but there are quite a lot of guys out there that have that. If they can see something mentally, and it's a strength, and it's a term that you use all the time, it's coachability. If they see that, they're going to want to pull that kid, because they know I can rely and I can lean on this player in a particular situation, and this player's not going to let me down. So you've also got to work on getting you and getting yourself right, and being someone who people want to be around, and they want to have you in their team, because this is a team sport. So coachability, big one.
That's one huge component where they will have a look and see, is the person coachable? Do they have the personality to work with the team? Because it's a team sport. Whether like my attitude, my philosophy is that you play for yourself, you play for your team. Can you play for yourself and your team? But will the player bust their guts for the coach?
Yep.
And that puts it fairly raw, but that is quite true. Everyone will see in sports a child prodigy at 11 years of age, and often they fall off as soon as the next big thing, and they fall off the mark because of lack of commitment, or people put in extras.
Yep. Just so attitude.
Yeah.
So, like we said, put in the work and get your attitude right, which I think if your attitude's right, the work's going to come after that anyway.
Yeah.
We have one more question, and this is from Joey. Can you get more trainers like Luke? So Joey is one of the boys currently in the program. He actually plays Harold Mats with Norths. So I think he was being a bit of a smart ass with this one. He also mentioned you actually, Paulie. He said the session that they did at the field session with you was really, really good. And he said that old guy was awesome. So I thought I'd bring that one up. So Joey, he'll be into you next time. Thanks, about
Joey,
that.
I remember that. What, the guy that's been carbon dated as a dinosaur.
Yeah. Now, Joey, I'd like to say we're always looking for good coaches, whether it's in the field or in the gym. And Luke's absolutely brilliant. With our field coaches, obviously Paulie has how much experience?
Since 23 years of age,
so
several years.
Several years, more than a decade or
more.
Oh yeah, and more. So we've got Tony, who hopefully we'll have on the show soon enough. Yeah. He's got 20 or 25 years. Will I get in trouble for saying 25 years? He's in the same. So yep. Yeah. Look, Luke and Danny, who are both our S&C guys who work through the sessions in the gym, they've both got their exercise sports science degrees. They're both currently working on their masters in strength and conditioning as well. And I think Danny's actually doing some work with Parramatta Eels with their junior development. They're Andrew Johns and is it Laurie Daly, the two country comps for the kids. Angus, who a lot of the boys in the program would remember, he came through and he was, again, one of our chief S&C guys in the gym. He did his exercise science degree, he did his masters, and he's now about 9 months through a 12-month internship over. He's over in the US at one of the colleges in Alabama, big college, 100,000 people at the football stadium. So actually can't wait to see him. He'll probably be back in about 3 or 4 months. Hello, Angus, if you're watching this. So look, thank you, Joey. All of our coaches are good, not just Luke. But to anyone out there watching, what I was just saying about the coaches, if you're going to be sending your boys out to a coach, or if you're a player yourself and you want to go out and find someone who knows what they're doing, don't just go to your local personal trainer who's done a 12-week course to get qualified and then think that they know what they're doing. They don't. Find qualified S&C coaches. It's nothing wrong with being a PT, but find a PT who's done his level 1 S&C and he has experience, A, training youth athletes, and then secondly, training to try to get people big, strong, fast, powerful, all those sorts of things that we're looking for in rugby league. I think that's going to about do us for today. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Nikki told me I need to say, send us lots of questions, please. Send them via Instagram, send them on Facebook, DMs, email. If you're in the program, send us a text message, give us a call and leave a creepy message. No, don't do that. Click subscribe, share it, tell your mates about it. Cheers. We'll see you in episode 3. Thank you. And thank you to Paulie very much for coming on the show. Look forward to doing it again. Cheers.